I'm not sure you can see him. That's a big spider. That's my thumb. Oh, wow. Ooh. Hey, welcome back to I Know Enough to Be Dangerous Farm. My name is Rob, and today we're going to finish up the drip tubing for our mums. This is the first year we're trying to grow some mums, trying to diversify the farm, bring some income into the farm in the fall before we start selling Christmas trees. So what we did last time is we planted the mums and we set them out, and we already had the drip tube installed, try to help us keep straight lines, which didn't work too well. So we wouldn't have to run drip tube after the mums are already on the ground in rows, because you have to unroll drip tube or it coils up behind you. So we wanted to run it first, staple it down, make sure it's secure, and then the supply house we used was actually closed the day after, so we couldn't finish it up. So we finally got back over there, and here are some of the things we're going to use. So normal growers up in my area use these spiders. They're already put together. They have the the spikes that go in the pod and everything. All you have to do is have the drip tube and buy the correct emitter. And I'm using 2 gallons. I don't know. It's a little bit of a trial and error, just like everything else I do. My thinking is these are the biggest ones you can get as far as the gallons per hour. So I'll just get the biggest one and run the irrigation less, and we'll work on the timing far as keeping the plants too saturated or too dry and so forth. And we'll probably have to adjust that with the temperature through the summer, but that's okay. I do not have a moisture sensor right now on this system. It's more of a mechanical. We do have a timer, but it's just going off a time. It's not anything else. So that's what we're going to do. So the process to install these spiders is we have the drip tube down. This is a little punch, puts a little precise hole in there. I have used an awl and Phillips screwdriver before, but they leak and they're a lot more dangerous. You're trying to do this and it finds your hand somehow. I don't know, but these are, I think this was 10 bucks. You can get, there's some different ones that are just manual, but this is 10 bucks. It does it nice, holds the drip tube in there and punches the hole. I won't squeeze that while my finger's in there for obvious reasons, but it punches the hole, and then you put this in and you connect this to that. And then this goes into the drip tube we already have installed, and this goes into each individual pot. So other ways to do that would be punch into the emitter and then have some spaghetti pipe just like this anyways, buy the stake, put it in, and you have your emitter on this end, and it goes to each individual one. It's a lot slower process. You got more holes in your drip tube, so if you ever want to use your drip tube for something else, you got a million holes. This, you have one for 4 plants instead of 4 holes in your drip tube. So I've never used these before. These were like $1.50, so it's kind of a no-brainer. All I had to do extra is the emitter, but they don't sell the emitters over there because they're different gallons per hour, so they don't know which emitter you would use on this. But this actually regulates the water, so you don't need a pressure reducer or anything else on your main line. But we are going to double check that. We're going to put a couple gauges on there. I had a smaller gauge, 0 to 60, we'll put over here. I got a larger one, 0 to 100, we'll put up by the main manifold where the valves are, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's the tools we're using, the process. What we'll do on the end here is these are just compression fittings for the drip tube itself. They just put in there and then pressure just holds it in there. So we'll make our own little manifold here, and then we'll tie into the main line with this filter. It's a very fine micron filter for drip tubes. You really need this because you'll just keep plugging this up. Basically it plugs right here with your dripper, so it'll plug that up if you don't have. We're going to have like a sediment filter over there by the valves, and then when it comes to here it'll be reduced down to 3/4, and it'll go through this fine, and it has a winter flush here, and this unscrews to so you can clean it. You know, it's a stainless steel screen is what it is, and you just clean that. You don't have to buy a new one. So we should have this quite a bit. And for fertilizer, we're going to use a slow release. We might try a little injection into the system, but more stuff you put into the system, the faster this is going to clog. We'll just go by we'll just judge if we need more fertilizer or less fertilizer just by what the plants are telling us, okay? So that's what we're doing today. And then we also have some caps for the other end, and this one we'll use compressed fitting after we put this all together, and then we'll put this down. We'll get a 3/4 down to a 1/2 inch, and we'll install it like this. We don't need this. And this will go to the main line coming down, and I'll show you the main line. So the main line is going to come down through here and tie in there, and then hook up to these drip tube. These drip tube lines will make a makeshift manifold, so they're all tied in together. It doesn't need much pressure, but this house I plumbed for irrigation, overhead irrigation, when I first built it 3 or 4 years ago. We don't use it that much, so I'm going to steal one of these black lines, reroute it over to here, and then bring it down there, and then tie everything in. But if you follow this back, it goes back to this manifold here, and this is just still winterized, so we'll put seems to be some bees there. We'll take care of that, probably off camera. But this is the manifold. Here's the manifold we made for here. We have a hose bib if we need it, but this filter housing will go here with a new filter in it, and you can see all the stuff in there. That's from using the creek water. Not sure I'm going to do that this year. We'll just use city water and treat it to get the chlorine. We'll treat the water. I know it sounds nasty, but we're just removing the chlorine. Here's the controller we'll be using. Like I said, it's just a timer, but you can hook sensors to it. So we're going to look into how much the sensors are. It's a 24-volt system. These are electric diaphragm valves. We can shut these off. I don't know why I put shutoffs here. Maybe to restrict the flow a little bit. If we had them all wide open, it seemed to be a lot of pressure, so we could run I zoned it out with different product in here. And then here's the pump we use. It will come off of this tank. I haven't finished plumbing that up, but this will go to here, this line, and it feeds this with a filter. So what I'll do now is break out the ladder, and I'll divert one of these shorter sections of black poly pipe and give us a water source over here, and then we'll make this kind of look pretty, hopefully, and bring it over to here, and then we'll be able to control our watering to our mums, because once the mums get bigger and the heads on the mums get bigger, you're not supposed to overhead water. I'm sorry if you do. I guess you can if you have to, but you're not supposed to, just because of disease. And I hate treating with fungicide and all that stuff, all that nasty stuff. I just hate doing it. So we use a little IPM, integrated pest management. We have a couple praying mantis eggs. We found they haven't hatched yet, and we put them in the greenhouse, and hopefully they'll hatch, and then they'll protect our greenhouse. That's the plan. So we'll show you that. Hopefully we can get hopefully we can get a video of him actually coming out. That would be really nice. And one of them happened to be on a clamp, one of those plastic clamps you use, and I happened to see it. It was up in there on the bottom, so I clamped it in the other greenhouse, and hopefully we can see him come out of his, it's not a shell, but whatever it's called. All right, let's get to work. So like some things I do around here, we have to change direction and call an audible. And I really should have rerouted one of these water lines before I put all these trees in here this spring, but I didn't, so now I have to do the old reachy-do over and a little more reaching off a ladder than I like to do. And the specialty tool we're doing is just a pair of, I don't know, we call them dikes around here, but that's what we're using. So this filter will have a in and out, so the in arrow is going that way, so that's why I put a 90 on this. Figure it'd come down like this, and you want this level, so it's at an angle. I guess it works better that way. Usually plastic, I don't like that sound. Plastic on plastic, I don't put the Teflon tape. I could turn that a frog hair more. Oh man, I don't like the sound of that. Gets it's on there now, a little bit more of an angle than I like. Right here maybe. All right, so I'm back. So one of the first things I did is I added this little piece of board here, just so the filter sets off of this board a little bit, so I can get at it and basically maintenance the screen easier. And make sure you put your little crimp clamp on first. We shouldn't have to heat this pipe today because it's 1,000,000 degrees in here. Get it to set where you want so you can turn that a little bit. I should do this. You liking that? Okay, I like that. So we'll crimp this. Nice and tight. We'll get some clamps for that. So we need a little piece. Whoa. So you need a little piece of the 3/4 inch black poly. Again, don't forget your clamp. That goes on almost too easy, but it is really hot in here. But we'll get that to lay the way it wants to. Looks like it wants to lay right there. Not sure what that was. Okay. Now I wouldn't mind putting one of the pressure gauges right there. Let me go get something. Like a bull in a china shop. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. My camera actually overheated. I didn't. Really. So we're gonna put off camera. I put this little deal together. I want to know the water pressure going into this drip tube so I can adjust it as a little valve back there. And we'll put that right there. As you can see, I can't find my tubing cutter, so I'm using my hand pruners. And I have the dropsies. All right, so what we'll do is do a mental measure I want that like that. Does work though. Nice clean cut. Has the curve on the bottom, but they are hand pruners. Don't forget your clamp. Put it up before you tighten it. I want it turned down a little bit. There we go. That's good. All right, did I break my zip tie? No. Okay, so we'll clamp that like that. And we can read that. And then we'll put that like that. And then we'll tie the drip tube into here and we'll do a little manifold down here. Let's get that up there, huh? All right, so I have this all set the way I want it. I took the screen out. I took the screen out of the filter because we're going to want to flush this before we do anything else, before we even hook it up to the lateral lines, just because of any little pieces of plastic and stuff like that. It'll jam up our emitters and jam up the plumbing, all that. We don't want that. So what we need to do now is, this is all 3/4 inch, and then we need to get it to the drip tube. And I don't know if you can tell, but the thickness of the pipe is basically what dictates its drip tube. There'll be pressure, there's pressure ratings on the side of all pipe. This is drip tube. It normally has a stripe down it, but it doesn't, but it's very flexible, so you know it's drip tube. So this fitting here is a normal 1/2 inch on that side, and then it's a drip tube compression fitting on this side, which you press that in and then it just doesn't come out. It just it compresses it. Okay, so we need to get from 3/4 inch, and I know I've gone from plastic to Schedule 80 to this to back to plastic to metal. It's hard to find 3/4 inch plastic threaded on both sides in my area, so this is galvanized. The only thing that hopefully doesn't bite me is this reducer it looks like it's black pipe. I hope not, but it's the only reducer I had, but I can always change that after we get this going. It just screws out, but I need a reducer go down to 1/4 inch thread for the pressure gauge here, so I can see the pressure. So now we need to get from 3/4 inch metal down to 1/2 inch, we need to get to 3/4 inch pipe thread to 1/2 inch pipe thread. And the way we're going to do that is a reducer, and this is really hot. So another pro tip, I learned this when I lived in Texas. In the sun, keep your hand tools, any of your power tools, any plumbing, metal plumbing, out of the sun so it doesn't scald you when you touch it. So this is female, we need to get it to this female, and how you do that is with a closed nipple. So we'll do some Teflon tape on this just because it's metal on metal. Teflon tape, always go the way you're going to screw it on. And careful with new plumbing pieces like this. The threads are very sharp. Even on old fingers like mine. So we get this going. Don't cross thread it. Get a couple pipe wrenches. Just happen to have two here. These are both rigid. One's aluminum, one's not. You know, if you ever get your chance to get aluminum, they're well worth it. They're a lot lighter, but they still do the same job. Again, another garage sale find. You don't want to keep cranking on that without holding it, because you'll break what you just did. And this metal on metal connection, you can just send it. But they're all compression fittings or clamps, so they will spin each other. It's not like it's a hard connection with everything. So that should be good. I'll lay those in the sun so I complain about it. Where'd that little, okay, so here we go. We don't need Teflon on this going on to metal, but if it does drip, we can always tighten it, or we can put Teflon on it. So just start it by hand. Don't cross thread this. I know it's easy to cross thread plastic into metal. You don't want to send this. You don't want to give this the grapes. Just kind of get it tight. It's kind of like an oil filter. All right. If that leaks, we still can turn it more after that. So now what we'll do is this is all you do with the compression fitting. So there's a prime example. So you can see it put little ridges on there, but the reason I pulled it out is I really couldn't tell how far it was in. So a good hack for that is either put a piece of tape there or a little scrape. It's hot enough you can put a little scrape there. You're going to want it in probably 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, or just send it till it stops. So I got it up to my mark because I can't tell how far it went in. So that's why I marked it. And again, have this lay out like it wants to, and just uncoil it. Otherwise it's going to want to coil back up on you. But you want it just to lay natural. So that's what I'm left with. I'm left with this main line, we'll call it, coming this way. And then all these laterals I'll tie into it. Should be pretty easy. We'll use these compression tees. We'll lay them out wherever we need them. Then this last one, we don't need a tee. We just tie it right in. So there. There's our manifold. Not pretty, but she'll work. Let's go put the ends on. So again, we're using the compression ends. There is straps that you can use. But that's all it is. You can take these off too, but there's some that you can get straps, and you just kink this over and double up the strap. He didn't have any of those, so I went with this. Or you can make your own. You really could kink it over and tape it, but you know, I don't know. Maybe do it right for once. I don't know. We don't need these because we changed direction like usual. Probably should have let it flushed out before we put these caps on. Here I am rushing. Yeah, probably should have, huh? So again, I'm showing you what not to do. Flush your system before you put the caps on. So what we'll do now is fill this tank up. Maybe wash this out. So when you buy these sediment filters, always try to get the ones that are clear. They also sell them white and blue and all that stuff. The problem with getting water from the stream is it's very dirty. Even with a filter, pre-filter in the water. It's still very dirty. But it doesn't have chlorine in it. So this is just a plain Jane sediment filter. You don't need anything crazy at this point in time. Make sure you put the O-ring in. And I do have a wrench for this, but you don't, I don't know, you don't need it that tight. There we go. Probably gonna cut this off. Make this a little shorter. So I'm gonna make this a little, I left it a little bit long so we can move it around here, but I think it's pretty much gonna stay where it is right now. So you can see how it's trying to kink here. If it was a little shorter, it wouldn't be so heavy. And I might need some of this on the other side in the other greenhouse. What this is fuel line, and I use it because it's flexible and strong, and you know, it's fuel line so it can take various material. Let's see if we can get it off without cutting it. Okay, here it goes. And it'll take the heat in the greenhouse and all that good stuff. And it's really not that expensive, and it's kind of easy to deal with. Still wants to kink, huh? There we go. You got to be careful putting that much zing on a plastic fitting in a greenhouse. Sometimes they get brittle with the UV, but I find these blue ones, blue fittings, are a little bit more UV resistant or resilient, I don't know. So first of all, we'll want to bleed the system out of this hose bib on the end. That'll bleed most of the system, and we can bleed the air out of the filter. This has been winterized, so I normally just drain the water out of it. So I think I'm gonna have to prime this pump, even though it's right here. There's really no pressure to get to the pump, so this has a priming plug right here that I'll open, and I'll fill the pump part of it. So in the past, the only water available, I'd have to bring down a gallon jug of water. Oh great, the O-ring's bad. Okay, the only water available was, you know, not here, but now I have city water here. I can just fill this up with the city water. All I gotta do is fill up the pump. Normally once, sometimes it takes twice. I'm gonna have to find a new O-ring for that, because that's not gonna see. It's gonna keep losing pressure. But I think I have a box of O-rings up to the garage. Am I getting any in here? It's okay if the water gets on the pump, but just don't get it on the pump itself. And if you do fill your pumps with antifreeze, get all the antifreeze out, because what it'll do is it'll bubble up, and you don't want that. It'll just make an airlock in the pump. You want to get that air out of your whole system, especially in a sediment filter. So I'm back. I got a new O-ring for this pump. You know, I highly recommend to have this on the shelf. Not a lot of money at that harbor store. You know, the quality, look how many different sizes you get. You just go in, you size it up. Even if these are cheap, which they are cheap and affordable, I change this maybe once a year. It's well worth it. Now maybe she'll prime a little bit better because it was sucking air through that. Again, you don't need to crank it up because it had more antifreeze in it than I thought. But anyways, if that's the only thing you got to replace at startup on a pump after overwintering, you're doing great. You're doing awesome. Because that old adage ran when I parked it, but you know how much stuff of mine breaks by sitting there? So you can see this filling up. You can see it filling up with water now, a lot less air bubbles. I'll just keep letting the air out so it fills up to the top and then it can run through. It's nice and clear now. This pump does have a pressure gauge on the side. Doesn't seem to be reading or working, but I obviously got some sort of pressure. I don't know if you can hear it, but it still has a lot of air in the system. There we go. You want to get all that air out till it's just straight water coming out of there. Let's see if she'll build pressure now. Yeah, she's starting to build pressure. You know, it's not that far to go here. We only got a few feet, but that's how much air is coming out of this system. Let's look at the hose then. Let's turn the hose back on. Pretty good stream. That's a lot better. So to turn these valves on, you can just turn it manually by this little solenoid. I don't remember which one it is. There's water coming through it. I don't know where it's going. Oh, looks like it's ours. So we're clearing out the system here. So I'll go shut that off so we can put the screen on. Always be careful because there's got to be an O-ring. Oh, it's on the side. On this, it's on the side. I was just looking to see if there was an O-ring in here. Sometimes there is. All right. See what happens to this gauge when I turn this on. This is where I wish I had a valve at the other end. So I did happen to have one of these valves kicking around, same compression valve. So I'm going to take one of these off. Wow. Ooh. That was full of water. Okay. I'll put this valve on. One way or the other. Got a little wet there, but it feels pretty good. All right, so now I have this valve on, and we'll let it drain out of here while it's getting up to speed. And it'd be a good way to drain the system too. I'll probably end up putting those on everything to winterize it. Wow. wash up a little bit. Boy, that was refreshing. So it's like a diesel engine. You want to keep bleeding this until it's a steady flow. Okay, we'll let that run and we'll see what we can do about getting some of these spiders in. I'm not sure you can see him. That's a big spider. That's my thumb. So basically what you have to do is, here's your emitter or your dripper that regulates the amount of water, and this goes in the drip tube. So you have the 4, they come in different lengths, but I got the 30, so it's a little bit more, 30 inches, so it's a little bit more forgiving. And so the water comes right out of the top here. This sits in the medium, and you leave it above here, and this drips water out based on what gallons per hour you have it. So you just want to put your little, you want the hole on top, put it in the little notch, put it in the middle in between. What did I do? Oh, apparently this does 3/4 and 1/2 inch. So you take this little blue thing out and you can do 3/4. Take that out and you can do 3/4 inch pipe. That's cool. All right, let's do this. Oh, there's water in there. So, okay, we know it's working, I guess. And now I know how they fell on the Titanic. But that goes in there like this, and then you put it in the hole you just made without getting wet. All right, and it should be coming out of here sometime. See how it's dripping out? See how it's dripping out? I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that constant drip. And then we'll just put it into 4. Down that far so it still can come out. So now we've just done 4 plants with 1 puncture. And just stagnant pressure, it's got about 12 psi on it. Looks like I have a few leaks to take care of, but no big whoop. We'll just go down through every 4, go down through every 4, and so on till this whole area is done. So I thought I'd do a close-up. Here is the tool. You set the pipe right in here. It punctures the tubing and makes a perfect hole for this to set in and not to leak. And you can take this out and you can do 3/4 inch drip tube or 1 inch drip tube. And this thing was like 14 bucks, so well worth it. And this is the drip tube. So what you do is you have, normally put the hole up. So you put it in there like that, and you just squeeze. No effort at all. You take it out, that's what you get. So then you put this in. If you're doing, you can put this in and put just spaghetti tube to whatever you're watering. If it's a landscape, but we're doing mums, so we use these spiders, these spider things. Obviously, that's why they call them spiders. And they already have the sticks with them. These little holes are where the water bubbles out. So when you put it all together, you put this in there. You got that. You find your hole, and it snaps in just like that. You can pull it back out, but it takes some force. Very minimal water in there because it kind of swells up afterwards. And then you stick these, like I showed you before, into the pots, soil line up to here, so that the water still can come out. That's all there is to it. So here's the finished product. Here's our manifold right here. Here's the filter system, the gauge, this is where it ties in. And then here's the spiders, tying everything together. Just one connection here, feeds four plants. The blue stuff is the poor man's Osmocote. Looks good. So forgive me, I'm a little wet here. Some of it's getting blasted in the face with the water, which kind of felt kind of nice. And some of it is, it's really hot in here. I never do any, it's not like I could have done this in March or anything, right? But we didn't realize where we were going to put the mums and all that stuff in March. So this is what we have, and this is what we'll do, and we'll take care of this. We'll get these all watered, and we'll give you an update. Like always, thanks for joining me, and take care.